Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The low hum of the fusion core filled the small workshop, vibrating through the reinforced floor and into Jalen Rourke's boots. Sparks danced along the edge of the plasma welder as he adjusted the output, sweat beading along his forehead. He had been repairing the damaged drone for hours, isolated on the outer rim of the Zeta 9 colony, where human presence was sparse and communication with the core worlds delayed by light years. Out here, even a minor mechanical failure could become deadly in minutes. Jalen was halfway through rewiring the drone's energy matrix when the first sound came, a sharp tap-tap-tap at the workshop's armored door. It wasn't the polite knock of a neighbor or the mechanical clatter of a delivery drone. This knock carried weight, precision, threat. He froze, hands hovering over the plasma welder, listening. 3 knocks. Then another 3, identical in rhythm and force. His pulse quickened. Out here, a knock could mean any number of things: pirates scavenging the outer rim, corporate enforcers tracking debts, or worse, something that didn't answer to human law. Jalen wiped his hands on a rag and approached the reinforced door. The security panel flickered, then sputtered. The external camera feed, normally sharp and reliable, displayed only static. Someone had jammed it professionally. Whoever stood outside wanted to remain unseen. He keyed the release, and the hydraulic hiss of the door filled the small workshop. A figure stepped inside, tall, deliberate, and almost impossibly silent. Jalen froze. She was nearly 7 feet tall, her body encased in black armor streaked with the pale scars of past battles. The armor gleamed faintly under the dim workshop lights, hinting at a metallic origin far beyond human technology. Her skin, glimpsed at the neck and joints, was a deep, reflective crimson, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. 4 amber eyes lined her face, glowing softly with an intelligence and intensity that made him step back. This was no ordinary visitor. The rumors of the Crimson Valkyrie, commander of the Kethan war fleets, had reached every colony in the sector. Tales of her ruthlessness, of fleets shattered and rebellions crushed, had filled the histories Jalen had read as a boy. Yet here she stood, silent, studying him. "Jalen Rourke," she said, her voice deep and resonant, layered with a subtle harmonic tone. "That's me," he managed, suddenly aware of how small he felt in the presence of a living legend. "Commander, Kethan designation, Vera." Her gaze didn't soften. "I require your assistance." Jalen's mind raced. Assistance? From him? A small-time mechanic on the fringe of human space. He swallowed, forcing his voice steady. "With what, Commander Vera?" She stepped closer, scanning his workshop like a predator observing its prey. One hand reached to her belt, but not for a weapon. Instead, she produced a small object wrapped in cracked plastic and worn tape. A human-sized data pad, decades old by human standards, with cartoonish stars decorating its scratched case. "I need you to repair this," she said plainly. Jalen blinked. The Crimson Valkyrie, a warrior who had commanded entire fleets, had personally traveled to his isolated workshop to ask him to fix a child's data pad. I'm sorry, I don't understand. There are thousands of tech shops on this station. Automated kiosks can repair something like this in minutes." Her 4 eyes narrowed. "You are a veteran of the frontier conflicts. Your record shows advanced technical skills and discrete operations. You specialize in reverse engineering non-human technology." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. It wasn't a request, it was an order carefully disguised. Refusing wasn't an option. Jalen's hands shook slightly as he took the device from her. Her claws brushed his palm, sharp, black, and terrifyingly strong, but the touch was warm, almost human in its familiarity. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "It'll take some time." The warrior ducked under the workshop's low beams, her armored bulk dominating the small space. Jalen felt the clutter of spare parts, tools, and half-finished drones suddenly claustrophobic. She didn't sit, despite the reinforced bench. She simply stood, her posture perfect, observing every move he made. He powered up the diagnostic scanner, its cold lights reflecting off the cracked data pad screen. The damage appeared mostly cosmetic, but when the device responded to the initial scan, alarms flashed. Military-grade encryption. Not just high-level human security. This was something designed to keep even Kethan tech engineers out. "You can bypass it?" she asked. "Probably, but it will take time, and I need to know what I'm looking for to avoid corrupting the files." She hesitated, then finally her voice softened slightly. "It contains recordings, personal logs. They are important. They belong to my offspring." The room went silent. Jalen nearly dropped the scanner. Kethan warriors didn't speak of family. They didn't speak of emotion. And yet, the most feared warrior in the sector was asking him to recover the only memory of her child. "How old?" he asked cautiously. 12 solar cycles, approximately 8 by your measures." Jalen's mind struggled to reconcile the legend with the grief reflected in her 4 glowing eyes. "And these are all you have left?" "Yes. During the evacuation of Colony Sarin 7, the data pad was damaged. I carried it through 18 battles. It was safe until I finally attempted access and the encryption failed." He set the scanner down and turned to face her fully. "I'll get them back," he said firmly. "I don't care how long it takes." Her gaze softened imperceptibly, just enough to reveal vulnerability. "You are certain?" "I am." She nodded once, a sharp military gesture, and handed him the pad again. The first step of a long process had begun. Hours passed. Jalen's fingers moved deftly over the device, bypassing layers of alien encryption with a combination of brute force and delicate logic. She remained standing, silent, yet not demanding. Watching. Learning. For a brief moment, he imagined her in command of her fleets, and it made sense. The same intensity, the same unwavering focus, whether on a battlefield or a small data pad. 3 hours later, the final barrier fell. The data pad flickered to life, displaying a list of 47 entries, videos, audio logs, messages stored across years. He exhaled sharply. "They're intact," he said. "Everything seems to be here." Vera approached slowly, her enormous form moving with the grace of a predator at rest. She glanced over the screen but didn't take the device. "Would you like me to check them before you leave?" Jalen asked. "No, I trust your work." Her claws brushed the device reverently as she held it. For the first time she seemed human. Grief, raw and unguarded, reflected in her gaze. "Thank you, Jalen Rourke," she said quietly. "Just Jalen is fine, thank you." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she straightened, the posture of a commander returning to her armor of authority. "I will leave Zeta 9 tomorrow," she said. "My clan requires my presence, but before I depart, I needed to thank you properly. You showed me that strength is not only found in combat, that asking for help is not weakness, that grief is not something to endure alone." "Where are you being assigned?" Jalen asked. "Diplomatic escort, a human colony near the Rixian border. They requested a Kethan presence to deter raids." "Sounds safer than fleet command." "Perhaps," she replied. "I requested it myself. I have fought enough wars. Perhaps it is time to prevent a few." Jalen smiled faintly. "That sounds like growth or exhaustion." "Both perhaps," she said, with no bitterness, only acceptance. "A warrior who has fought too long becomes dull. I do not feel dull, only changed." He handed her the data pad. She took it, the gesture simple yet profound. "The recordings worked. I heard their voice. They were joyful, proud of me, even though I was often absent. This is more valuable than victory or honor." Jalen nodded. "Strength isn't only in combat. Sometimes it's in compassion, in listening, in remembering." Her 4 eyes seemed to glow a little brighter. "You are human, yet you persist in ways we Kethans cannot understand. Perhaps there is more to your species than strength alone." Then, as silently as she had arrived, she left, her armored form melting into the corridor's shadows. Jalen stood alone in the workshop, exhausted, shaken, yet oddly uplifted. The data pad rested on the workbench, the screen alive with the echoes of a lost child's laughter and stories. 3 days later, there was another knock, same measured rhythm. But this time, she stood in the doorway without armor, holding a small wrapped package. Inside was a blade, black and steel-etched with the history of her first command ship, a gift, a gesture of gratitude for restoring more than just technology, but memory and humanity. "Goodbye, Jalen Rourke," she said. "You reminded me that strength and compassion can coexist. Perhaps one day our paths will cross again." He watched her go, the small smile returning to his face. A reminder that even the greatest warriors are still capable of grief, and that humans, strange and fragile as they are, possess something uniquely powerful: compassion. The hum of the fusion core returned, steady and comforting, as Jalen turned back to his work. And in the corner of the workshop, the darkened blade gleamed, a testament to a human's ability to endure, to care, and to leave an impact on the galaxy far beyond physical strength. The weeks after Vera's departure passed quietly for Jalen Rourke. Life on the Zeta-9 colony returned to its usual rhythm: maintenance of mining rigs, repair of freighters, and the occasional contact with travelers passing through the frontier. Yet, every time he glanced at the darkened blade she had left, a faint warmth ran through him, a reminder that strength and compassion could coexist, even across species. Then came the message. It arrived on his personal comm, encrypted with military-grade Kethan protocols. The sender was unknown, but the signature carried the unmistakable resonance of Vera herself. Jalen hesitated before opening it, almost afraid of what it might contain. With a deep breath, he decrypted the transmission. "The colony is safe. Humans are strange but kind. I am beginning to understand why your species persists. Thank you for teaching me that strength is more than violence. Perhaps one day I will return. Until then, be well." He stared at the message for a long moment, the words echoing in his mind. Humans, strange but kind. Perhaps. Somehow, knowing that the most feared warrior in the galaxy recognized the value of human compassion made the hardships of the frontier feel lighter. But the calm didn't last. 2 cycles later, the colony's alarm systems flared, sending red warnings flashing across the control panels. Jalen dropped the wrench he was holding and sprinted toward the observation deck. On the horizon, dark silhouettes moved against the swirling gas giant sky ships, unlike anything human, approaching fast. No distress signal had been sent, yet the colony's automated systems had recognized the fleet as hostile. Pirates, raiders, or worse. Jalen felt a pang of fear, but also the same clarity he had felt when Vera had stood in his workshop. Fear didn't mean weakness. It meant preparation. He sprinted to the control hub, activating the station's defensive systems. Automated turrets rotated into position, shields' hums flared along the outer walls. The first strike came within minutes. Laser pulses scorched the atmosphere as the enemy ships tested the colony's defenses. Automated turrets returned fire, but there were too many, too fast. Jalen knew the station couldn't hold out for long without intervention. He ran to the communications array, sending a desperate signal to core worlds for aid, though relief would not arrive in time. The colony's survival depended on improvisation. Then he remembered the blade. He rushed to the workshop and retrieved the Kethan weapon Vera had left. He had never handled it as a combat tool, but perhaps its significance was more than ceremonial. Perhaps it symbolized the connection between human ingenuity and alien strength. The station's engineers were huddled in the control room, terrified, but Jalen's calm authority spread quickly. "Listen to me," he said. "We're not waiting for help. We're defending our home. Every turret, every drone, every weak point, we use it smartly or we die." The engineers exchanged hesitant glances but obeyed. In minutes, The turrets focused fire on the incoming fleet. Automated drones intercepted smaller craft, and the station's shields pulsed in perfect rhythm. Jalen ran diagnostics, adjusting targeting sequences and power distribution like a maestro conducting a symphony of destruction. Despite the chaos, he felt something familiar: compassion. Not for the attackers, but for the people who depended on him. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they cared enough to fight for each other. Hours passed. By the time the enemy fleet withdrew, several smaller ships destroyed and others badly damaged, the colony had survived. The automated systems were battered but still operational. Jalen slumped against a console, sweat and grime streaking his face. Then a new signal arrived on the comms: a Kethan fleet. Not Vera herself, but enough firepower and authority to secure the region. The relief was almost physical. Humans had survived, but they had done so because they had acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. After the fleet departed, Jalen returned to his workshop. The blade sat where he had left it, quiet and unassuming, yet it felt alive with a presence he couldn't explain. He sat down, holding it, feeling the weight of both steel and meaning. Days later, the message from Vera arrived again. This time it was shorter. "You defended them well. You remind me of what humans are capable of. Perhaps our paths will cross again. Vera." Jalen smiled. She understood them. Humans, fragile and short-lived, yet persistent, compassionate, clever, resilient. He had repaired a data pad once, restored a memory, and taught a warrior that human strength wasn't only physical, it was moral, emotional, and unyielding. But life in the frontier moved on. Supplies needed repair, freighters required servicing, and miners demanded attention. Yet the story of the Kethan fleet attack spread quickly. Humans who survived credited their ingenuity and courage, often forgetting the terrifying odds they had faced. For Jalen, the lesson was clear. Humans survived because they cared, because they persisted, and because they found strength in each other. Weeks turned into months. The colony thrived despite the constant pressure of isolation and threats. Jalen became a local legend, known as the mechanic who saved Zeta-9 with courage and cleverness. But the memory of Vera and her gratitude lingered. Then one quiet evening, a low hum echoed through the station's hangar. A ship, sleek and black, appeared over the horizon. Its markings were unmistakable. Vera had returned. Jalen felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. He met her on the landing platform. She was no longer armored for war, but wore the same simple tunic from before. The aura of authority remained, tempered by a rare softness in her expression. "You've done well," she said, her 4 amber eyes watching him with an intensity that was almost familiar. "The colony thrives. You've reminded me of human persistence and compassion. I am grateful." Jalen nodded, feeling the weight of the past months lift slightly. "It wasn't just me. The people here fought too, but you believed in them even from afar." She tilted her head, considering him. "I have seen many warriors in my time. Many fight out of duty, many out of pride. Few fight out of care for others. You fight out of care. That is rare." For a moment, neither spoke. Then she stepped closer, placing a small data pad on the platform between them. "This is for you. A record of everything I have learned, everything you have taught me. Keep it. Perhaps one day it will help you understand what we Kethans endure and why humans endure in spite of everything." Jalen picked up the device, feeling its weight. Unlike the first pad, this one was a compilation: history, strategy, and philosophy. A bridge between species, between worlds. "You could have left me alone," he said quietly, "yet you returned." "I returned," she said, "because strength alone is not enough. You've shown me that compassion matters. And humans are persistent in ways we Kethans do not understand. That persistence can save worlds. I wanted to see it with my own eyes." The truth of her words struck him. Humans did not survive because they were the strongest. They survived because they cared, because they endured, because they refused to abandon hope even when all seemed lost. Vera's ship began to hum, signaling departure. "I must leave again," she said, "but perhaps one day our paths will cross under calmer skies." Jalen nodded, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. "I'll be here. I'll keep the frontier safe. You've taught me that strength is more than power, it's responsibility." She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "And you have taught me that even the fiercest warrior can learn humility, compassion, and the value of trust." With that, the black ship lifted, its engines burning bright against the stars. Jalen watched until it disappeared into the void, the message clear. Humans, fragile yet persistent, capable of compassion, intelligence, and courage, could leave an impact even on the greatest warriors of the galaxy. Alone in his workshop, Jalen returned to his bench. Tools scattered around him, drones hummed quietly, and the darkened Kethan blade gleamed faintly in the corner, a reminder of the connections forged through bravery and empathy. Humans were not the strongest by sheer power, but in the frontier they were the most dangerous, not because of what they could destroy, but because of what they would protect. And that, Jalen realized, was enough to change the galaxy. The frontier stretched endlessly beyond the station, filled with threats, challenges, and unknown worlds. Yet for the first time, Jalen felt hope. Not the reckless hope of inexperience, but the quiet, persistent hope that humans carried in their hearts. He returned to his work, repairing drones, fixing engines, and preparing for the next threat. Life would continue, difficult and uncertain, but humanity's spirit, curious, compassionate, persistent, would endure. And perhaps far out there in the void, a crimson-eyed warrior would remember a small mechanic who had reminded her that strength without empathy was incomplete. For Jalen Rourke, the frontier had never felt so alive. And for the galaxy, the last signal of compassion, courage, and persistence had been sent.